Let's go ahead and get started, please. I want to welcome everybody to the 2013 Parent Leadership Council School Board Forum. My name is Bonnie Smith, and I am one of the co-chairs of the PLC this year. I want to thank our candidates for participating in today's important event. We do know that one of our candidates, Mark Sperano, was unable to join us today. He had a prior work commitment, but his wife, Nancy, will be sitting in for him and will answer the first set of prepared questions for him. We are recording today's forum, so please be sure to speak into your microphone. The forum will be available for viewing on the district website later on this week, perhaps even as early as tomorrow. Before we begin, I wanted to describe the general format that we'll be having for this forum. You will begin with a 1-minute prepared candidate introduction, an opening statement about why you are running for the school board. Then it will be followed by a response to the question that you received ahead of time. After that, we will pose 2 general topic questions for all of you to respond to. Next is the ever fun lightning round, where each candidate will receive 2 randomly drawn questions, and the questions have all been submitted ahead of time by our Parent Leadership Council members. Finally, we have 1 question for all of you to answer, which will kind of close as closing remarks. As time permits, we're going to take additional questions that have been submitted by the audience. Those of you in the audience will have found a note card on your seats. Please feel free, as we go through the forum and the questions, to write down any additional questions that you might have for the question and answer session at the end. I did want to make sure everybody knows that all of the candidates will be answering each question, so please don't pose a question to a specific candidate. These are general questions that all the candidates will be responding to. And the cards can be delivered to a few of our PLC members who are participating with helping, Susan back there, and Erica, and Jen. So if you have a card, you can raise it up and they will come by and gather it. They're also going to be compiling the cards so that we don't have duplicate questions in the end. Throughout the forum, we're going to be rotating who begins the questions and where the direction is either reverse alphabetical or alphabetical. So we wanted to give all of you a chance to be maybe first, in the middle, and potentially at the end as well. In order to get through all the prepared questions, especially we have a little bit of a late start, we're going to be limiting the response time for each question. I will mention the time allotted before we begin each of the questioning. Our timekeeper here is my co-chair, Andy Schnaweis, and she will be the timekeeper who will be indicating when the responses need to be wrapped up. For the longer questions, we have a 1-minute warning, 30-second warning, and then a 15-minute warning, which you need to wrap up your responses before the buzzer goes off. We do need to keep on track, so I will be interrupting and moving on with the next candidate at that point. And also, please keep in mind, for the audience as well as the candidates, this is not a debate. It's just a chance for you to explain your positions and for us to learn more about you, and also the general public can learn more as well. So, welcome, and we will move on. So we're beginning with an opening statement from each candidate. Everybody has 1 minute to respond. And the formal question is, please tell us a bit about yourself and why you are running for school board. We will begin with Danielle Busby and move down to Gail. Move on.
Good morning. Thank you to the Parent Leadership Council for hosting this forum, and thank you for you all being here. I look forward to hopefully building a connection to earn your vote today. I recognize we are fortunate to live in a community where education is paramount, but each year we face tough decisions on how to allocate our resources. I will listen to and reflect the concerns of our community and work collaboratively with our board members and district staff to improve our schools. Hopefully, with fresh eyes and new perspectives, the next few years will produce some cost-effective innovations and new initiatives. In our community, we value top-notch education, and we are able to provide that education. However, there are changes and challenges ahead in order to continue our excellence and to take our educational system to an even higher level. I am Danielle Mitchell Busby, committed and ready to do just that.
Next, we will hear from Gail Castro.
Good morning. My name is Gail Castro. I'm a native Minnesotan, and I'm a product of the public school system. I believe very strongly in our schools and their ability to prepare our children for the future. I'm running for school board for a couple of reasons. One, and most importantly, I'm vested. I have a 2nd grader and a 1st grader, so we're going to be utilizing Edina Public Schools for the next 11 plus years. I need to care, and I think if by caring for my children, I can in turn care for your children. Two, I think I've got the skills to contribute to the Edina School Board. I have a very strong business background. I am committed to the schools and what we can do. And quite frankly, I have the time available. I'm very fortunate to be able to stay home with my children, and therefore I have the time necessary to commit and make sure that we're doing what we need to do. I am excited to be here. I look forward to answering your questions, and please remember to vote Castro November 5.
Next, we'll hear from Lionel Dorville.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having us and hosting this event. Why am I running? Because I'm a first-generation Minnesotan. We planned it, we came here, and we made sacrifices to be here. And I think it's fortunate that we have this opportunity to be in this school district. I was fortunate enough to take in 2 nephews and bring them into this district. And what we found was there were some gaps that needed to be filled that weren't. And I felt as a parent I could do better to help instead of being a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. So I find that with the transition of my nephews from Edina High School on out the system through my own little ones, 3 kids, through the system from 3rd grade down to pre-K, I feel I could help. I'm a social justice major. I work for the Department of Corrections, and teaching and helping young people are my passion. So thank you very much for having me, and I hope you'll learn more about me today.
David Goldstein.
Thank you. Both of my parents were born in 1924, grew up in the Depression, and had extremely little as children. But what they had is a great strength in the power of education to make an individual's life better and to make our future as a community better. And growing up with those priorities and being blessed by some wonderful teachers who I rank as among the most important people in my life, I've not only had a great deal of success in a lot of materialistic ways, but have found the world to be a place of infinite interest and curiosity and joy. And I believe our schools play a critically important role in making the world a better place for us, for our children, for our communities. I am passionate about their importance in our country and in our community. I am passionate about the importance of teachers and want to support them. And for those reasons, I would like to have your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Randy Meyer.
Good morning. Thank you to the PLC for hosting today. I think this is a great event with all the new candidates. I am here for the same reason many of you are here, as our site leaders. I am here to interest of serving our youth, giving back to the community. We have a fabulous strategic plan laid out ahead of us with some challenges in it, certainly, some changes, some huge changes to our system. And I believe my 12 years of service to the district, the past 6 as chair, is critical in helping us move forward. It's important also to understand that come January 1st, whether Regina and I are reelected or not, a majority of our school board will have less than 2 years of service to the district. So I think it's critical as we move forward to ensure that we have continuity in our leadership, that we can execute this plan and move this district forward. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
Hi, I'm Regina Neville. I do want to thank the Parent Leadership Council for giving us this opportunity to meet with all of you. And I know what a difference this group and all of our community makes to education. I have 3 kids. 2 are Edina High School graduates, now in college, and I have a 9th grader at Valley View. My professional background is in nonprofit management and teaching. I've spent 10 years as a managing director for 2 different theater companies, and I've taught at UNC Chapel Hill. I hold a current Minnesota teaching license, and in Edina Public Schools, I've worked as a long-term substitute, a sub in almost all of our buildings, and also as a Success Center teacher. During my 4 years on the board, I've been able to participate with the development of the strategic plans to look at birth through grade 12. This is important change. I've invested some time and depth into researching these, and I want to see them through. With some continuity and experience on the board, I know that we can make a positive difference for our students.
Lisa O'Brien.
Good morning. My name is Lisa O'Brien. My passion has always been kids. My educational, professional, and volunteer experiences have always involved children. I have a PhD in child psychology. I have worked in longitudinal studies with at-risk youth. I did behavioral and educational assessments at the University of Minnesota for children, infants through adulthood. I have volunteer experience and board experience at Greater Minneapolis Crisis Nursery, again with children the most vulnerable in our community. All of these has allowed me to gain insight in working with children with all levels of cultural backgrounds, ability levels, and socioeconomic levels. I also have been very volunteer. I also volunteer greatly in the schools, and it's really allowed me to see what great work our children and our parents and our teachers are doing in the school. I believe that my deep professional insight into child development will offer a unique and different perspective than we've had on the board in the past, and I hope to have your vote November 5th.
Vivian Talgoddard.
Hello, and thank you all for being here. My name is Vivian Talgator, and my husband and I have 4 children, a 4th grader at Creek Valley Elementary, 6th and 9th graders at Valley View Middle School, and a senior at Edina High School. Having children at every school level gives me a good perspective of how the district is doing as a whole in educating our children. I have been an active Edina Public Schools volunteer at both the school and district level, having participated on numerous committees, as well as having served as Creek Valley PTA co-president, Valley View Middle School Site Council president, and co-chair of this particular council. I hold a doctorate in electrical engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, and have worked at Seagate Technology for the last 16 years. This gives me a good understanding of the high-tech future for which our children need to be educated. Edina Public Schools are among the best in the nation. I would like to help take the schools to the next level. I ask for your vote on November 5th to work towards that end. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear Mark Sperano's opening statement as read by his wife, Nancy.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mark Sperano. I am saddened to not be able to join live. My wife, Nancy Sperano, has agreed to read my statements. Thank you for continuing your tradition and hosting this event. In my capacity as U.S. Bank's Chief Audit Executive, I am currently out of town attending Board of Directors meetings. My background is business. My expertise is in financial services, specifically within risk management, auditing, and accounting. My nearly 3 decades of experience has centered at the board level. Logical thinking steeped in financial stewardship is what I bring to the table. Over the next 4 years, the district will be challenged with change initiatives spanning from personalized student learning to updating school facilities. All of this transformational change will put increased demands on the board to ensure our high quality of educational services does not deteriorate. Hence, I offer my campaign slogan, preserving our strengths as we transform. My name is Mark Sperano. Thank you for listening and hopefully voting for a fellow parent who wants what is best for our students and community.
Thank you to all the candidates. Let's move on to the prepared questions that the question that you received last week. You will have 3 minutes to respond, and Andy will again indicate the time remaining. The question is, as a school board member, what specific actions would you recommend to ensure attainability of the district's All for All mission? And we'll leave the microphone with Nancy Sperano. If you could respond with Mark's comments, please.
The All for All strategic plan sets the stage on how Edina Public Schools will transform in its next generation. At its core, All for All is about closing the gap between our highest and lowest performing students. In my capacity as a board member, I will ensure that we preserve the strengths embodied in our highest achieving performance as we transform to close the achievement gap. In my analysis of the April 2013 All for All Task Force report, I identified a few areas where I, as a board member, could take specific action to ensure attainability for the All for All recommendations. First, I agree with the task force recommendations aligned around recruiting and retaining teachers that embody the beliefs held in the All for All strategy. As a board member, I will perform detailed reviews of teacher recruiting materials, goal-setting documentation, and the ongoing measurements of teacher success. I believe this effort will move the needle on the achievement gap, investing in our teachers who then invest in our students. Secondly, I would get involved with how students and parents are engaged to take their active role in setting personalized learning objectives. Instead of having teaching pushed to you, this transformation requires individuals to actively pull in learning objectives. As a board member, specific actions will include listening to teachers, students, and parents to factor in their input and the communication and awareness needed for this piece of the All for All strategy. Lastly, I will call for a 2016 reevaluation of the task force recommendations. I would like to measure our performance on how lower achieving students are raising their performance, while at the same time not letting our higher performing students revert towards the mean. By that time, most initiatives have been implemented, and we would have enough student performance data to determine if we attained our All for All objectives. If needed, I would volunteer to fine-tune the process, ensuring the next generation of Edina Public Schools is built the right way. My name is Mark Sperano, and I believe in All for All. I like the strategic plan as currently laid out. As a board member, I would ensure we measure our progress, remain true to our objectives, and bold enough to recognize where we missed the mark and retrofit accordingly.
Next, we will hear from Vivian Talgater.
The All for All mission signifies that all children are important. However, the needs of all students are not the same, and that must be accounted for. As a school board member, I would recommend 3 things to ensure attainability of the district's All for All mission. First, an IEP or individualized education program is required for any child who, according to federal regulations, has a disability. Its purpose is to describe how the student learns, how the student best demonstrates that learning, and what teachers and service providers will do to help the student be more effective at learning. In actuality, every child needs an IEP, not necessarily to the same degree as that required for children with disabilities, but still something which is a working document between the school and the family. It should list specific aspirations for the child, as well as what work the school will do, what work the family will do, and what work will be done together to support those aspirations. It should also list what progress is being made towards those goals and what contingency plans will be put in place if progress is inadequate. Whether the child is working below grade level, above grade level, or at grade level, this would ensure that everyone involved in the well-being and teaching of the child knows exactly what expectations are and what needs to be done to help that child reach his or her potential. Second, just as teachers need training to improve upon instruction, so do families for helping their children learn. If an IEP were established, some of those specific family needs would become apparent and could be addressed prior to them becoming problems. For instance, if parents do not know lattice multiplication, either they could be taught or another resource identified before their child comes home needing help. The district's community education program includes classes for parenting, specific grade levels, but schedules and finances do not necessarily always allow attendance. An expansion of the district's volunteer program to include parent mentoring would directly relate to the All for All mission and would have minimal budgetary impact. Parents of recent high school graduates might consider serving as a resource for parents of current high school students, or parents of current high school students might consider serving as a resource for parents of current middle school students. In this way, information can be exchanged between folks who might not otherwise have forged a connection. Third and finally, the school board needs to do its job well. The board must ensure that district resources are used as efficiently as possible and that the policies and budgets set by the board are fully aligned to the All for All mission. The board must ensure that the task is broken down into manageable pieces and that a clear, well-defined path for implementation has been laid out and communicated. Thank you.
Lisa O'Brien.
As a school board member, it is our responsibility, or be my responsibility, to safeguard the reputation that Edina has in the community. I believe that my role is to help the administration prioritize among all the well-meaning ideas that come before the board. Because if everything is a high priority, then nothing really can be. So I feel our children's educational intellectual growth is the highest priority for the district. Every child needs to grow and get access to the best education we can provide. children struggling to meet proficiency, middle learners, and those that have met proficiency and need more challenge, all learn differently, and our district needs to be able to adapt to meet these individual needs. So I believe with the strategic plan with personalized learning, I think that is a tool for us to get towards meeting all of these individual needs. We need to not only look at group differences, but also individual differences. If a child makes 2 years of growth in 1 year, that is a success for that individual child, and we should be able to look at that and celebrate that. How do we implement personalized learning? Well, as a board member, I would support data and partnerships. Let's look at the data. How do we define growth? Are we seeing growth? For those that we are not seeing growth, let's look outside our community. Are there other programs or educational models that are seeing growth and success? Let's partner with them. Let's partner within our district. The Community Education Services Volunteer Program connects volunteers in our community to do basic homework help and skills development. Let's do that. Let's partner with staff and teachers to innovate our advisory program. Every child who leaves our district should have a person who knows them, who has followed them for years, can advocate for them, and really knows their strengths and weaknesses. Let's partner in the community. We know, all research shows that the earlier you reach a child, the more success you're going to have. Let's partner with our preschool programs. Make sure that we're seeing where they have children with strengths and weaknesses, get them intervention services early so we can prevent an achievement gap before they reach kindergarten, because kindergarten, I believe, is too late. And when we prevent the achievement gap, that's beneficial for everyone. And I also believe the school board, in partnership with parents, teachers, staff, the general community, can raise academic achievement for all the students, wherever they fall on the ability levels, by laying out a strong strategic plan supported by measurable and data-driven goals. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
All for All is the right mission, and it's a large goal. The best foundation to support achievement is the depth that's currently being explored in the birth through grade 12 studies. And this includes input from our teachers, parents, our students, and from the community. This input, combined with data and the study of best practices, will lead us in the right direction to evolve into a more effective organization for education. The key components to achieving All for All include personalized learning, realignment of time, space, and funds, and a commitment to equity and collaboration. Clearly defining personalized learning is a key to attaining a mission for all to all. Education has been delivered in silos of specific grade levels and sweeping categories that are sorted by gifted and talented, middle learners, and students in need of intervention. This system does a basic job of educating to general needs, but it's similar to working for an average American family of 2.2 children. How do you address the 0.2 child? The reality is that our delivery system needs to flex in order to meet all of the strengths and weaknesses that each of our students has as individuals, and to go into some real depth to address their needs. For aligning space and funds and time, our use of time and space needs to change to support learning anytime and anywhere. Some good examples of this include the change to a 30-minute advisory slot at the end of the middle school day. Another example is the high school program on Wednesdays that provides some flex time to allow for professional learning for teachers and for students to seek some advisory time with teachers. For changing space, the Southview cafeteria renovation intentionally designed space that can be used for both eating and for learning space. The board has also been reallocating funds. We have a finite pool of resources, and we need to direct those funds where they're needed, and in the recent year, we've been putting those toward more reading and math intervention. Finally, it's imperative to have a serious commitment to equity and to collaboration. When my family moved to Edina in 2000, the district's non-white population totaled 6.7%. We are now at 20% diversity. We need to make sure that we can fully appreciate the depth of enrichment that this opportunity gives us, and also make sure that the welcome mat is out so that all of these families who may be new to Edina have the opportunity to participate fully, and that we can learn from each other to provide excellent education for all of our students.
Randy Meyer.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read the op-ed section yesterday, article about education. Let's give adolescents a chance to grow up. I think it pretty well summarized what we're talking about here. We begin by changing school to let young people advance as fast and as far as their efforts and abilities will take them in every field. It goes on to state, if learning were personalized, those who needed more time would get more time and would learn more. Those who could go faster would go faster and would learn more. That's competency-based progression. I think that pretty well summarized what we're trying to do here in Edina. What is our role as a board member that we can help facilitate this progression? As a policy body, I would recommend the following actions. What policies do we need to put in place to facilitate the procedures throughout the district to allow the all-for-all and personalized learning to be implemented as quickly and as completely as possible? What are the current policies that are in place that inhibit the progression and advancement of the district, and how do we update those policies or remove them? And the third point around policy is how do we ensure that the policies that we have put in place are distributed around the district and incorporated into the handbooks and procedure manuals in order to make sure that these policies are adhered to. Second part, the major part of our focus as a board, is we are the financial stewards of the district. What is it that we can do to build a template for a budget that ensures the all-for-all and personalized learning is implemented and is facilitated with our use of funds? And how is it that we can rely on our education experts and our leadership in the district and our teachers to ensure that we are putting our dollars where they are best spent to facilitate all-for-all and personalized learning? And our third role is that of leadership. How is it we can work with the superintendent to ensure that we're providing him and our leadership and our teachers the support that is needed to facilitate the implementation and successful execution of the all-for-all and personalized learning? Thank you.
David Goldstein.
Thank you. First, I think the district's commitment to diversity, to meeting the needs of all students, to having students and their families be responsible for a good use of the resources that the district provides, all make sense, all are important. And I applaud that. I think the all for all phrase works well as a mission statement and a reminder to those within the school of what we're trying to achieve, but I think it has been imperfect as a means of communicating to the larger community what the school's trying to do. And in fact, in going door to door and talking to people and meeting people, I don't see a great deal of understanding as to what the district's trying to do. And I see, certainly some confusion. Now, part of that is the responsibility of the public, because the school does a lot of work to communicate what it's doing, and people have an obligation to figure out and take advantage of what's communicated. But it's also true that there's a very good reason why the Board of Education is elected. Elected officials are remarkably exquisite instruments for figuring out what the community thinks and needs, and that is the primary role of the board in implementing and dealing with all in all. Figuring out where we're ahead of the community, where we're behind it, where we're failing to address the legitimate concerns and worries of parents who, after all, are interested in the good of the community and good of the larger region, but at heart, what they care about the most is my child getting what my child needs in the best way? And we need to make sure that we're assuring people that that is the case and that they understand why these programs are really in all of our interests and not for the benefit of somebody else, but not me. I think those programs are in all of our interests. I think we can do a better job of communicating to parents, to the community at large, why they're at our interests. That, I think, is one of the primary roles of the board. The other role of the board, which I think the other folks who've already spoken have very ably dealt with, is making sure that the right questions are asked, making sure that we're looking at the right data, providing the expertise that the various board members provide from the different experiences that they've had in life, and making sure that the professionals who we have on the administration, and we have a wonderful superintendent and some very, very wonderful professionals, are doing the right things, setting the right priorities, and at the end of the day, allowing the people who really do the heavy lifting in the schools, the teachers, that they have the opportunity to do what they do best and identify the needs of their students and inspire their students to learn and to thrive. Thank you.
Lionel Dorville.
I start off with something that I live by and I believe in. Leadership should be born out of the understanding of the needs of those who would be affected by it, by Marian Anderson. And if you ever received an email from me, you'll see that on my letterhead. The role of a board member, I think, is to communicate effectively the needs of the parents, the community, teachers, staff, administration, and board members as a whole, because we bring in our own biases to the table. And understanding that, I think, is very important and critical, and we need to be transparent about that. And I think as a district, we do many things well. Transparency may be one of those that we may need to improve, and I think we have a new communication person who is amazing at communicating quite well, so I think we'll have that taken care of. One of the points that I mean by clear and effective communication, when we're talking about closing our achievement gap, is real. It's a 40% difference between our white and Asian youth and our kids of color on free and reduced lunch, and I think our Latino students are doing a bit better at 20%. So programs that are in place, which I am the benefactor of, being my daughter, we're part of the Young Scholars Program. That's a program that's working with kids of color and multiple facets to raise their achievement gap up, and they receive additional tutoring, additional learning time, and additional attention and expectation, which is, I think, part of that all for all, is closing that expectation gap, because it's real. We're looking at our math. We bring in readers to read to students. We bring in math assistant, and I think a lot of that needs to be communicated better. As a board, we have a responsibility to our community that when we're out in that community, we carry that message of what we do and how we do, and we're doing it quite well. So I think in that's what we need to be critical about. I think let's get practical. As teachers, you know the students who are failing, why they're failing, and what we need to do. And I think those clear criteria measures are based on our grade point averages. I use the 4-point scale, we use the 12-point scale. 4-point is easier for me to measure. Let's look at our first point of intervention, 2.0, which is 2.0 is our lowest gap. We're critical. 2.5, we need to intervene, possibly evaluations, bringing the family at all levels. 2.7, we need to intervene. So I think at each level, we put in clear, defined gap measures that we need to implement and come in and stop. So that is the role, and those are some of the things that I think we can do to effectively close that achievement gap. Thank you.
Gail Castro.
Thank you. All for All is interesting to me. When we moved to Edina, again, we moved here primarily because of the schools. But like David, when I've been out talking to people, I get a lot of no, that can't possibly exist here in Edina. Clearly, everyone in this room knows it exists. We're talking about it. But I don't think the community at large has embraced the fact that not all kids are getting the same opportunity or learning at the same pace as other students. So as a board member, I think a couple of things need to happen. Specifically, we need to do a better job of educating our community that there is in fact this gap. Because I think once our community can take ownership of this, they can contribute. And even if their child isn't one of the ones who necessarily needs the help, they certainly can provide the feedback. I think we need to continue to employ subject matter experts. We don't need to recreate the wheel. Edina is not the only district that's facing this challenge, but certainly there are people out there, community leaders. We're blessed to have such strong business here in Minnesota. Take advantage of those. Take advantage of our quality teachers. Take advantage of students on both ends of the spectrum, and certainly incorporate parents and get their feedback and what they think will work, because clearly If there is a need, we're missing something somewhere. I think the next step is to take that data and set obtainable, measurable goals that have accountability assigned to them with deadlines. That's what I keep hearing missing. We need deadlines and we need people assigned to tasks with accountability. We can implement those goals then through our quality teachers, through teacher materials, through these personalized learning plans that everyone is talking of. And hopefully with those personalized learning plans, there will be ownership. And that's really got to be back to the parent, back to the student. The student has to want to learn. The parents have to recognize that their students are here to learn, and teachers are here to do everything they can to help those children learn. Implement. And then all along the while, we are measuring the data. We are measuring to see if we are achieving our goals set in our timelines, et cetera. And if not, adjust. And oftentimes that means going back to the drawing board, going back to the individual student, going back to our community. Where do we need to change? Because this is going to be a very fluid process, and it's going to be very, very individualized. So I think our role for Edina is to embrace, organize, implement, and make sure we measure against timelines and against accountability measures. Thank you.
Danielle Busby.
First off, I agree with the current strategic plan and the current mission. I also agree with all of the candidates' expressions in regards to their responses to this question. I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach, and hopefully you can join me on that approach. In thinking about this response to this question, I was thinking about using a stepladder approach for some possible action steps. Communication is paramount in trying to support this all-for-all mission. Building communication lines vertically between community, parents, students, teachers, staff, and the board, being transparent, showing clear intentions, and always welcoming feedback. For example, the board members could serve as a conduit between the site levels, which is the school level, and the district office, being more present and being that conduit to make sure that those communication lines are open and effective. Building communication lines will provide new opportunities for connection and active participation from all the diverse perspectives and the growing, changing faces in our district. And engage them in our education process for the future. Thirdly, supporting current efforts of community organizations, such as Connecting with Kids and the Education Fund, growing those partnerships to improve access and equity resources for our students and families. For example, expanding collaboration between the board with district staff and site staff with regard to equity and awareness concerns as it applies to policy design and scope. Lastly, I strongly believe the board needs to demonstrate interest, awareness, and concern for all citizens of the learning community at all times. Please check out my website for any further details and my bio and motivations to run at www.dmhbusby.com. Thank you.
We will now pose 2 general topic questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Our first question is, what are the 2 most pressing issues facing the Edina Public Schools? And for this round, we will start with Lionel Dorville.
Currently, I see the 2 most pressing issues for Edina schools are closing our achievement gap and connecting with community, all communities. One of the most things that was very apparent to me, first day of school, and I please encourage you to look at this. First day of school, when you're filling out forms, see who sits down and fills out the forms immediately. And I think that's important that you notice that, because you will see that is a very diverse group who don't want to stand out, who does not want to be a target, or have their kids identified as possibly, let's just say identified in any capacity. And for me, that really resonated because I felt that angst that I need to do more, I need to be better. And how can I do more? How can I be better? Let's join the PTO. Let's work with the schools that my kids are in. Highlands, with Peter Hodney, which was amazing. We developed a community symposium last year, which was fantastic. And now this year, as a result of that feedback, we have 3 symposiums going on now. Closing our achievement gap with practical, targeted goals. I really feel that first point of intervention, soon as a kid is struggling, and I really emphasize that 2.7 mark or that B average mark, let's bring in the family, let's talk. That C average, let's bring in counselors, let's bring in teachers, let's have a full committee meeting, and at that 2.0, let's bring in community partners, business leaders, and resources. At every level, we need to intervene and stop the gaps as they're occurring, not when we're finally at this precipice where it's their senior year and it's time to graduate. They don't know what they're going to do. Thank you.
Next, we hear from David Goldstein.
Thank you. The first issue I would suggest is how to continue to meet the needs of our communities given our limited resources. The last decade has been hard on our schools. Even with increased funding now, we still don't have the funding that we would have if the legislature had just kept us up to inflation over the past 10 years or so. So there's a lot that we need to do. Our schools are very much an investment in our future, and I think we've been underinvesting. How do we make that right? How do we do all of the things that we've all talked about as being important and wonderful given our resources? And that will require a lot of hard work from the board and creativity and input from the community, but it's a challenge that I think working together we can meet. The second issue that I see is figuring out how we're going to use new technologies in the schools. There's a lot of excitement about what technology offers, but it's not a panacea. We're not going to figure out how to do everything we want to on our limited resources just because of technology. We're not going to be able to reach every kid better and have greater success just because of technology. We're not going to make every teacher better just because of technology. It's not the panacea that some folks would hope it would be. So figuring out how to intelligently use it, I think looking to good teachers for assistance in figuring out how we can best use technology is important. And once we have figured out how to best use it and how to make use of our resources, then of course the problems that we're going to want to apply to are things like the achievement gap, which I do view as very important, but I view funding and the general educational program as the way in which we get to that. Thank you.
Randy Meyer.
2 most pressing issues. Obviously, closing the gap is a big one. Some of you were at the Give and Go Luncheon, a great program looking at what are the little things that we can fund for kids that sort of are unknowns. You know, it's the kid who doesn't have access to private band lessons, which all of us know the kids need to have for band, or access to the band program once you get beyond the 5th grade. What are these roadblocks that are set up for someone from outside our district may not understand, and how do we remove those roadblocks? A great additional example was kids applying for college that are non-native English speakers may have very, very high IQs, but because the ACT test is based so much about the U.S., it puts them at a disadvantage. So how do we get them alternative testing that more accurately measures their capacity to be successful in college and allows them to enroll in college? The second issue is obviously finances, and with finances is also facilities. So how do we ensure we are best using our limited resources, both in our general operating budget, which is in the classroom, and also our capital funds, to make sure that we have the best facilities we can and also the best teachers and classrooms we can to help our children be successful. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
I think that the two most pressing issues that are facing education right now are definitely the achievement gap, which has been referenced, and I hope that we do continue to hear reference to this, and also management of change. The achievement gap is going to be addressed by personalized learning. We need to look at each student's individual needs and have our system become flexible enough to meet those needs. In terms of change, change is not something that's new. It's something that, as a society, we've often tried to adapt to, and I think that the key is going to lie in managing the change. We've had a lot of expectations added to education over the last century. The number of expectations to education have only gone up at an exponential rate in recent years. Funding, unfortunately, has not changed to keep pace with the expectations. So being able to manage the resources that we have of the funding, also the resources of aging spaces and spaces that are designed for a different delivery system of education in order to meet true need of our students who are preparing for a future that is not something any of us have experienced yet is going to be key. So embracing that change and indeed helping to shape it as opposed to simply reacting to it will allow us to create schools that are a process, not a place where we go. Education is something we all do.
Lisa O'Brien.
I think we've touched on, when we looked at the All for All strategic plan, or the part of the strategic plan, that was one of the major issues. How do we really meet the needs of all the children in our district? And we also have to look at the changing demographics of our district. We are becoming more diverse, and that's a great thing. The world is diverse. That is how we live. That is how we can get our kids to learn to cooperate and compete and engage in a world out there, not just in our town of Edina. So how do we really meet those needs? How do we provide supports for children that come into our district? How do we make Edina a welcoming place for everyone? And how do we retain talent that is here, losing students to other districts or other programs or private schools? We need to work very hard to make sure we keep the talent here and to encourage other talent to move in. The other thing I'm concerned about is, of course, finances, and how do we balance that when we look at our facilities? We have limited resources. All-day, full-day kindergarten, we are, I believe, embracing, and that does have a cost. We are going to be having to build new classrooms to 2 of our schools. That is something that we're going to have to go to the community about. We need to be able to look at those costs, look at the aging buildings. What are classrooms going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years, and how are we going to support that financially, or use that strategically to make sure, maybe we do some innovations to make sure that we are creating an environment in which all our children can learn to the best of our ability.
Vivian Talgater.
Okay, so I listened to the people who spoke before me, and I certainly agree with a lot of what they had to say. I believe that the top issue facing the Edina Public Schools is resources. There are 8,400 students in our district, roughly, and our buildings, quite frankly, are overflowing. We cannot continue in this way, and not only are our facilities not necessarily inadequate for housing, but we also have finite budget. So recently, the decision was made to reduce the Valley View Middle School media staff and to ask for volunteers to help out at the middle school. There are creative ways for dealing with, that's a creative way for dealing with the resources that we do have, and there are many more situations like that which will occur. So I believe that resources is the top priority. The second thing, which Regina somewhat addressed here, is we don't really know what the future is going to hold for our children. And we are trying to educate them for that future. And so the board will need to try to get in front of that along with the district. Technology will need to be used, but unless it's used in a wise manner where there's training and the teachers have been a unified approach to doing this, it's not going to succeed. Just having a laptop for every student or a device for every student is not the way to go. So those are the two things that I think are the most important. Thank you.
Danielle Busby.
Okay, I believe the number one concern is, or I should say, I like to say challenge instead of concern, convincing the general public that Edina has challenges that need to be addressed. That's the biggest issue. And all of that, what everybody else said, falls into those challenges and addressing those challenges. My second point is, I believe that everything starts with the teacher. A happy, progressive, engaged and trained teacher is key to giving our kids the best education. We need to take care of our teachers, give them the support and resources for their ever-growing work demands. I hear every day while I'm volunteering at our school, the workload on the teachers is just expanding. And I don't think parents realize what is actually on a teacher's table. And I think that as a school board, we really need to address that and really work and collaboratively with the teachers, one-on-one, and with the teachers union, trying to identify how we can help with our policy-driven missions. Thank you.
Gail Castro.
Thank you. Both of my big concerns, aside from All for All, certainly fall under the auspices or the umbrella, if you will, of finance. For me personally, the use of technology in schools, I'm both fascinated and watched in horror about technology. My first grader came home last year with all kinds of homework that was to be done on the computer. And at first I thought, hey, this is fantastic. I worked for Oracle, I worked for Computer Associates, so I'm a very strong technology geek, if you will. And what I thought was so cool suddenly became oh my gosh, that's all he wants to do. He wants to be on his iPad, he wants to be gaming, he wants to communicate with his friends, sit side by side with his buddies and play on this device. And I'm concerned about the communication. So, we talk about technology and how cool it is and how vitally important it is to compete in a global economy. And really that's what this is about, right? Educating our kids so they can compete in a global economy. It is vitally important, but how do we do that in a productive manner so that they understand it's a tool and only a tool? The other thing that is of concern to me is security and safety, and that can include building security and safety, but also the use of data, student data, collecting student data, disseminating student data, helping our students understand things like Facebook, and how they use their data on technological devices or websites. That concerns me, and I think those are issues that we need to get in front of because, I see kids posting stuff on Facebook, and as a hiring manager, gosh darn, they don't understand that once it's there, it is there, and they can be doing some irreparable damage. So, for me, again, aside from All for All, it's taking a look at technology and taking a look at security and safety in our schools.
The next general question for all of you, again, will be a 2 minutes response. What do you see as the role of parent involvement in the district's achievement of its mission and goals? And we will begin this round with Regina Neville.
One of the strengths of Edina is that we do have involved parents, and indeed we have an involved community. So this is not just parents who currently have students in school. We have an involved community who may have graduated from Edina schools themselves or have had their kids go through and they remain engaged. So a key to parent involvement, one is helping them become informed and stay informed about what is happening in the district and what the needs are. Partnering as learners. As a parent, I've always felt that I'm continuing to learn as my kids are learning. So that's, one, is demonstrating a good model, but two, I just get better at it and I'm not finished yet. So how can we partner? The partnership, we've had models of partnership and engagement with each of our school sites. We've had newsletters that have gone out. Some of those are changing to electronic format, or different ways of engaging families. I think we need to find out, how do families of our youngest learners need to get information? They may be different from the way our high school students, the parents of high school students, are getting information, and still maintain the forms of communication and partnering with our parents who have had kids exit the system, but how do we continue to welcome them, embrace them, and keep them back into the system?
Next, we'll hear from Randy Meyer.
Parent involvement is key in any educational process, because they really are the partners with these students, with their children, through the educational process. And there's lots of wisdom in our community, and we need to constantly leverage that in a beneficial way for all involved. So I think it's critical we communicate, we effectively communicate, and on an ongoing basis, we also continually gather data and gather information and really get better about how do we compile and learn from that so that we can implement change that is productive and in the best interest of our students. So I think the key is engaging, communicating, and learning from our parents so we can be more effective as a school district.
David Goldstein.
Parental involvement is key to success, and it's important that the district be run in a way that parents feel empowered and able to be active participants in their children's educations and contribute. But the piece of it that I want to talk about really is parental involvement with regard to the achievement gap, where we have both opportunity and challenge. We know with regard to the achievement gap that if kids are not at the right reading level by third grade, we may never get them caught up, probably won't. We know that early childhood family education is key. We know that parents reading to their kids is key. And the problem is that a lot of the education gap has its origins not in race, but frankly in poverty. And where parents have limited time and limited resources, which is a result of poverty, it is very hard for them to provide their children with what they need to succeed here, and it's hard for them to get them involved in the process. So the challenge to the district is to figure out, how do we help them meet their needs? And I don't want to just focus on out-of-district kids, but if you have someone sending their kid from out of the district to Edina, presumably they're committed to the program, they care about education, they want their kid to succeed, but that commitment may not be enough by itself. So how do we support them? How do we support the child in their home so that they can succeed here? I think it was Randy mentioned the Give and Go program. That's one way to help. There are others. But this really needs to be part of a regional solution. It needs to be a part of a solution involving not just the school district, but other governmental entities. But a big part of the solution is bringing in the parents as well as their children and helping the parents to do what they need to do for their children to succeed. Thank you.
Lionel Dorville.
If you don't mind me asking, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, definitely. What do you see as the role of parent involvement in the district's achievement of its mission and goals?
I think the role of parent involvement is a real one that we need to look at if we're talking about parent involvement. Look at our current structure of how we set up conferences, where it's not a teacher's fault, but I'm lucky after 30 minutes and 20 parents later, if a teacher can actually give me some one-on-one time to really address the needs of my young youth that is in school. So I think when we say parent involvement, what are we really asking? Is it just to say we communicated, or is it that individualized personal communication that we bring in back to our school district? Because a lot of times when we say we communicate through different medias, we communicate out. How do we bring that in, back into the schools that we're sending our kids and asking them to learn within? And I think that only helps the teachers when they're able to familiarize themselves with parents. Now, maybe a few of the teachers at the high school know me more than they would like, but I think that's a good thing, because it's important that if my nephew does do something that is not conducive to the learning environment, they can pick up the phone. So I think it's key in how we communicate in ways that we can communicate, not only through the web, but I think is a personalized phone call. I know that's old-fashioned. I pick up the phone. I'm a caller. I don't email as much, which I should, but I really think if we get back to some of these practical steps and realize that we're still people at the end of the day, because as teachers, you're parents of kids in the district, out of the district. I was fortunate enough to try to move into the district, which we are benefiting from that. I mean, teachers know me and say hello. I see them at hockey, which was amazing. I did say hockey, and I love it. So I just think let's get back to some practical things we can do to make it better. Thank you.
Gail Castro?
Thank you. I think I see the role of parental involvement in achieving district goals quite simply as asking our parents to take ownership of their student, have them take ownership of why their kid is here, and that's to learn. How do we do that? I think, as everyone has said, we do that by keeping our parents informed at the district level, at the classroom level, and I think information is certainly vital, but like you just said, I think we also need to reach out to them on one-to-one. So often we get this mass email for PTO at this time, and people can't maybe make it for whatever reason. But what I found as a class parent now in the last 2 years running is when you reach out to them at an individual basis, either through school board or whether it's the teacher or a PTO member, reaching out to on a one-on-one, people will volunteer. People want to get involved. They have time. They have resources, and if they don't have time, perhaps they have some other way that they can contribute. And again, that's all going to drive the end goal, which is keeping our parents involved in our schools, keeping them aware of what's going on in their students' classroom or in the community of the school district, so that they can ensure that their child's personalized learning plan, for example, is being met. And I think we just, again, it's that one-to-one connection, getting back to basics, communicating with people, and reaching out to them, letting them know that their input is valued, that will help parents take a vested interest in helping Edina meet their goals.
Danielle Budsby?
I concur with both Lionel and Gail. Communication is the key, but getting back to basics is best. Having that one-on-one personalized communication line open between the teacher and the parent needs to be put to the forefront, not just shooting information to them through email and just say, mass information, here you go, because a parent has many other roles other than just being their child's parent. They're doing lots of things outside of the home, and they're involved in very many things outside in the environment. So I believe that we could, if we just focus more on that one-on-one communication between parent, teacher, and child, we can be more successful with the parent engagement. I was also thinking that we need to grow new connections and opportunities at the site level, maybe utilizing more of the PTO and the PTA to engage those parents on a more small group level versus actual volunteer event, fundraising, that kind of thing. Centralizing it and making it a smaller connection, maybe going out to coffee, maybe having a lunch session, just being more creative and to getting the parents to be more connected to the schools. Then also, I want everybody to understand and accept that cross-culturally, we all differ with our approach to education, and there are some folks that don't approach education as being hands-on. So we need to acknowledge that and accept that we can't force people to be involved the way we want them to be involved. We just have to open it up. Thank you.
Vivian Talgater?
All right, so I see the role of parent involvement in the district's achievement of its mission and goals as extremely critical. I tried to address this somewhat in my prepared statement about what specific actions would I recommend to assure attainability of the district's all-for-all mission. The IEP that I had mentioned was really trying to get at what can the family do to support their child? What specifically can the family do to support their child? The Minneapolis School District spends more per child than the Edina School District for education. However, the Edina students perform significantly better than the Minneapolis school students do. Well, why is that? That is because families move into the district because they care about their children's education. They are willing to be there to back them up, to help them with their homework, and to support their aspirations. So the key thing then is what is keeping them from doing that? Well, I think that part of what's keeping them from doing that is they're not entirely sure of what it is that they need to be doing to support that. So that needs to be communicated, and hopefully through the individual education plan, the IEP that could be established, that would be communicated. Thanks.
Lisa O'Brien.
Yes, parents are the key. That's why we're all here. We're the first teachers, the very first teachers. So how do we continue that teaching that begins at infancy and then bring these parents as teachers into the district? So how do we gauge them? Well, I think first we have to acknowledge that people engage and volunteer differently. Some people volunteer in the classroom. Some people donate online or they donate their money. Some people go on site council. Some people help in other ways in the community that supports our district. And all of these are vital for our district. What are the barriers to being engaged? Well, one, I do think is communications. I believe that as a parent, I often like to see a little bit of the decision process, not just the conclusion to decisions. And I think if I were pulled in to the decision-making process a little bit, I would be more likely to engage, partly why I'm running right now. Also, I think we need to make sure we are creating a supportive environment for all of our parents to engage. So those of different cultural backgrounds, engaging with them in different ways. It might not be email, it might be a phone call, it might be an actual personal letter. It might be a little notebook that goes home back and forth with the child that the parent can see what's gone on that day with a little note, what could we do for tomorrow? We just need to acknowledge that just as our children all learn differently, our parents do as well. And we need to be able to create that environment.
Thank you to all candidates. We are now moving on to the lightning round. I have 2 baskets in front of me, one with each of your names in it, the other one with questions that the Parent Leadership Council members came up with that, as involved parents, they're interested in hearing your feedback about. We will pull a name out until all of the names are gone, and then we'll put the names back in. So there will be 2 opportunities for you each to answer a question. You will have 1 minute in order to answer that. Any questions? All right. So the first name, I'll look away. Randy Meyer. And Randy, your question is, what do you plan to do to ensure that you are able to balance the responsibilities of the school board along with your other personal and professional responsibilities?
Thank you. I've been successful at doing that for 12 years, so I'm pretty confident I can continue that. I think it is a challenge, though, but technology has actually helped quite a bit there. You can review information online or exchange emails as a way of communication, but it is important for board members to understand there is a meaningful time requirement, and it can be a challenge at times scheduling meetings, but it is important that board members put the time in, and I certainly am willing to do so. So, thank you.
I have a name here. The next name is Gail Castro.
Okay.
And Gail, your question is, what experience do you have volunteering or working in the Edina Public Schools, and what leadership positions have you held related to the Edina Public Schools?
Well, that one's going to be easy. I'm relatively new to the district, so I haven't held leadership positions within Edina schools. However, I am the current class parent of both of my children's classrooms this year. I'm also a member of PTO. In the past, in our previous school district, which was out of state, I was again class parent. I was an elected position on PTO. So I think those positions certainly can follow through to Edina. And then outside of schools, I have always been in the business industry, business sector, and worked in business strategy as a manager. So I think I can apply those skills into working within the Edina Public Schools.
And the next question will be for Vivian Talgater. And that question is, what is your definition of personalized learning and how does it align with the district's mission?
All right. Personalized learning is, on the one hand, quite personal. Success means something different to every individual. So the way that I see personalized learning is sort of like having that IEP, having some document that states how are you going to get to the end goal for your particular child. And the ways for doing that, whether you've got a scorecard or some dashboard or something specific to your child that you can see they did well on this or they did not do well on this, how are they reaching their end goal. That's my personal definition of personalized learning.
We will hear next from Danielle Busby. And Danielle, your question is, what do you think should be the district's role? What do you think the district's role should be in helping provide quality early education to its residents?
Can you repeat the question again,
Yes,
please?
I can.
Sorry.
What do you think the district's role should be in helping provide quality early education to its residents? We'll begin the time now.
The district currently is doing a very, very good progressive job in supporting the early education platform and trying to they're doing the screening tests that they are doing for the grades 0 through 5 in the elementary level, and trying to identify the areas of pitfalls that may be occurring in preschool levels and before they actually even get to school at 2 or 3 years old, and trying to work with all the education entities within Edina to identify kids that may be in need or kids that may have challenges, or identifying what the needs of those children are going forward, whether it's social or academic.
The next candidate we'll hear from will be David Goldstein. And your question is, what is the district's role in educating learners of all ages, for example, adult learning opportunities?
Well, the district has certainly chosen to have that as part of its mission, to deal with learning from birth through, I think 85 is the slogan, but we're willing to take people past 85 too. And I think that's properly our role. We are about education, we're about community. As you've heard me say, I think schools are the essential institution of both community and democracy, and it is as important for someone in their 40s or 50s or 70s or 90s to remain engaged and to continue to learn as to anyone else. It supports also the community's engagement in the school's mission as a whole, and it supports us remaining together as a community. So I think it's all good. It's an important part of the mission. The only thing I would say is in talking to people, certainly I've met adult learners, people who use the community center, who feel like they're second-class citizens in the district. And it's true that our primary mission is the kids, but we need to do a better job of making the adults feel that they're engaged and have a say in what we do too.
Our next candidate will be Lisa O'Brien. And your question is, Do you feel there is too much pressure on students in the Edina school system to challenge themselves academically, take multiple AP classes, etc.?
The pressure that children feel comes from many places. Comes from within, comes from parents. That is where I think the primary pressure is. I don't feel, and now my oldest child's in 8th grade, and then I have a 5th grader and a 1st grader. So we haven't gotten to the AP set level yet. Personal experience, my child wants to be challenged more. And that has been a struggle for our family to get more challenges. So for some people, I would say the answer is no. For other people, the answer is we've hit it just right. So when I look at personalized learning, I really am encouraging parents, children, teachers, staff to really set the right zone of development. It shouldn't be exactly where the child is. It shouldn't be below where they are. It needs to be where they are and slightly above to encourage them to continue to grow. And maybe that's AP and maybe it's not.
Regina Neville, your question is, what can the district do to close the access and opportunity gaps that exist for some Edina Public Schools families?
Closing the access and opportunity gap is going to require a partnership. So it's getting all voices at the table, and that includes how do we reach out to bring everybody to the table in the first place. We need to find out how do people best gather that information, what is their stake in it, and what are their needs, as opposed to saying, here's what we think the needs are. We need to step back and figure out what are those needs. And then it's a lot more pushing out, reaching out, going to where everybody is, supporting people at the family level and the community level, and creating a new way of doing things. It may not look the same as the kinds of systems that we've had in place so far, so being willing to reinvent.
The next candidate, Lionel Dorville, excuse me. What are your thoughts on adding more choice programs or magnet school options for families? For example, another language immersion school, IB, etc.
When we're looking at time and space capacity, I think it becomes a resource issue back to that. So are we talking effectively looking at possibly adding a Saturday school or one of those additional options? I think those would be some of those creative, innovative ways to look at it and offer it to more students and bring in community help. So I welcome it, however we could bring it in. But I think that does become a resource and space capacity issue that becomes difficult. So at that point, I think we need to be creative in looking at some creative options. I'm all for after-school time because a lot of our parents work later, and if we can offer that as a possible elective after school, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, so Andy has put all your names back in the basket, and we'll randomly choose again. So Danielle Budsby, you're up. And your question is, in your opinion, what is the current school board's greatest strength? What is the biggest area of improvement needed? Your time will start now.
I believe the greatest strength would be just the overall intelligence and passion and strategic thinking that they have been showing, demonstrating so far. Definitely is their strength. The challenge would be just making sure that all perspectives are taken into account, and that all approaches are considered in trying to identify what the needs are socially and academically for our children.
Vivian Talgater. Do you believe the school board should set policy regarding the amount of homework students receive? Your time will start now.
When the kids started elementary school, we were kind of given guidelines as far as how much homework the child would be receiving or expecting to be able to do. I am not sure that that has been formalized, but I believe that something along those lines would be helpful. The challenge there is that some students may require extra work, and it may take them longer to do that work. So I'm not sure that specifically setting a time for each child is the right answer. But certainly for what should be covered at each particular grade level, I would think that would be a good thing to do.
Regina Neville. Edina Public Schools has adopted a bring-your-own-device approach to technology integration rather than purchasing devices outright and providing them to students. Do you think this is the right approach? Why or why not?
I think that bring your own device is the right approach for a variety of reasons. One, it allows students to select a device that best meets their needs. So for some, that's a tablet. For others, it could be a Chromebook or a traditional laptop. Ownership of a device increases your commitment to protecting that device. It allows you to use it in cooperation with your own family's guidelines for best use of a device. So it can go back and forth to home. It's something you can become comfortable with. It's also more sustainable for the district. I appreciate all of the research that we've done as a district and with our technology department to review the cost of sustaining a one-to-one district-issued device. What we know right now is it's not possible to sustain that.
Gail Castro. What can the district do to help close the achievement gap in Edina schools? As you can tell, the parents are thinking the same things you guys are, so.
Well, we talked on this one earlier. Obviously, as I said earlier, I think in closing the achievement gap is educating the community that it really exists, helping the community take ownership in closing that achievement gap, reaching out to our subject matter experts, parents, teachers, community, et cetera, to find out exactly what it is they think we can do, formulate a plan with timelines and measurable, attainable objectives, implement that plan, and then make sure we're measuring against those objectives and that they're being achieved in a timely fashion, because I think time is of the essence, and I think if we give ourselves deadlines, then we're more likely to meet them.
David Goldstein. How do you see technology integrating in the primary levels of the school?
I'm honestly not sure, and I think that's something we're still trying to figure out. My bias is, although I'm open to looking at data and seeing what we learn and what educators think, my bias, though, is that you don't do well in the virtual world until you have a fair amount of experience with the real world. And for the most part, at the primary level, I would much rather see kids manipulating blocks and playing with trains and doing things with their hands and with nature and other similar tactile, real-world things than virtual things. I see no issues with kids adapting to technology, and I see no reason why they have to have it pre-K or K through 5 in order to be able to be very good users of it later in life. So I would defer to the educators, but my personal view is I don't see where there's a huge role for it in primary education.
Randy Meyer. How do you feel Edina schools prepare our students to be leaders in the world? Your time begins now.
Thank you. One of the challenges we wrestle with, both with our staff and with our students we develop, is how do you teach leadership? And that comes in many, many different forms. Sometimes it's in the classroom, sometimes it's on the field. Sometimes it's outside of school. So I think we do a good job in developing leaders, but I think we can always improve. But I think it's important to start to better understand what are those key drivers that will help the students that are challenged by our systems to really become leaders in their own way. Thank you.
Lionel Dorval? How do you feel Edina schools prepare our students to be good global citizens?
Very well. I mean, our students go on to do some amazing things. That is the good news. The challenging news is how do we help and encourage that and foster that self-efficacy for all students to be global leaders and see their impact at every level. That means college, that means the trades, or any field that they choose to go into. So I think we do a lot of professional development because our curriculum and our model is, sought after and one of the top in the country. So we do that quite well.
Lisa O'Brien?
Process of elimination.
Yes. Lots of tension on that one, right? Yeah. School board members often have to make difficult choices about programs given the limited budget. What criteria will you use in helping to make those difficult decisions?
So my background has always been child development. And I always look at every decision as what is best for the child. And not only what decision will affect a certain group, but who will it impact that maybe we're not thinking of? Who might lose in this? And how do we manage that loss? How do we support something that we might have to take away? I would also look at how well are we doing each specific program in the decision. So for example, it was very hard for the school board to say no to Spanish. And that was really hard for the community because we believe that having a second language is very important. So how do we continue to support that program and learning a second language early in the elementary grades when we have limited resources? And one way we tried to do that was through community education. But we also want to make sure that when we have a program, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. And making those decisions based on the children's needs is how I would do that.
Thank you to all candidates. We're going to move on to our final formal question before taking questions from the audience. You will all have 1 minute to respond to the same question, and the question is, what does a successful future Edina High School graduate look like? We will start with Vivian Talgater.
Sorry, could you just repeat?
Yes, definitely. What does a successful future Edina High School graduate look like? Your time begins now.
So as I alluded to earlier, success means different things to different people. So what a successful a future Edina High School grad look like is really in the eyes of that particular student and that particular student's family. That could mean that the student has gone off to an Ivy League school, or it could mean that the student has chosen to do trade school to further their career aspirations. But not one model fits all there. So,
Danielle Busby.
I was formulating my answer here. The first thing that came to my mind is I would like them to be socially adjusted, being sensitive, understanding, and globally have a global perspective in all the decisions that they make going forward. I want to be able to provide that leadership and cultural sensitivity. Plus, I would also like to engage them and make sure that they are living a healthy and health and wellness lifestyle going forward so that they're nutritionally sound in their decisions for life.
Gail Castro.
Thank you. You know, as Vivian suggested, success is defined differently by different people, and certainly what I think is important may be different than what somebody else does. But if we can have our children leave high school feeling confident and feeling empowered, that would be, to me, a huge success, because those two words, feeling confident and being empowered, will allow them to pursue whatever it is that they want to do, whether it be go to college and enter the business world so that they're globally aware. Perhaps it's that they want to be just a good citizen. Maybe you aspire to be nothing more than a great stay-at-home mom and give back to your community through your kids. Or maybe it's that you're progressive and forward-thinking and you're going to, you know, who knows, maybe be the next president. So for me, if we can just help our children become empowered and confident, that's how I would define it, that we've done a good job.
Lionel Dorville.
Critical thinkers. I'm excited if my nephew remembers, you know, to take a shower in the morning. I mean, I think when we're really thinking of this question, what do we want out of our Edina grads? We want them to be critical thinkers, because we know in this emerging job market is becoming tighter, and we do need people that can think, can work through difficult situations, and not look at this immediate situation and understand there's something more beyond whatever they're going through at this point in time. So I really think that self-efficacy, that understanding that they are tied back to this community and this community will be there to support them is an important. So I think an Edina grad is one that can stand on their own, but also understand that they have the support of the community to back them up in whatever endeavors they take forth. Thank you.
David Goldstein.
To be successful, I'd like to think that all of our graduates have had an opportunity to meet people who are different from them, who have ideas that are different from what their parents had or what their families have, and have discovered that people can have different ideas and still be good people and sincere people and smart people, that they know how to live and work within that type of diversity, that they have been challenged, that they have had opportunities to figure out what their aptitudes are and to develop them, and to have identified what their passions are and to pursue them, and that they leave here feeling a sense of commitment to this community and to the broader community. Thank you.
Randy Meyer.
The mission of Edina Public Schools is to work in partnership with family, the community, to educate all individuals to be responsible, lifelong learners who possess the skills, knowledge, creativity, self-worth, and ethical values to thrive in a changing, culturally diverse global society. The goal for our district really is to do a good job of helping people succeed in being creative problem solvers. And that's just not going and memorizing something. That's really learning how to use your mind to solve problems. And it's not a class you can just sign up for, but that's really a progression as we go throughout our system. And it's a challenge. But I think that really is the task at hand. How do we teach creativity and problem solving, because we don't know what skill set these students will need when they get out into the workforce. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
A successful Edina High School graduate, first of all, knows that they are not finished learning. If they're prepared to be a lifelong learner, I think that they are a good path along on their way to success. This will include self-awareness of their own strengths and where they need support, and ability to seek out the resources they need in order to be successful as they continue their path after high school. They need to be a good user of resources, not to just know what answers might be to a current question, but how to look for the answers when the questions change and the information changes. And foremost, they need to be adaptable. The world is changing, their world will change. So if they can find some kind of comfort level to adapt from setbacks and to adapt to a new environment, they'll be ready to go.
Lisa O'Brien.
If we, as an Edina public school system, provide opportunities for our children to make the choices to meet their needs, to have flexible programs for them to meet their needs, to make connections with other adults to be able to learn how to reach out for help when they need it, to be able to have opportunities to participate in leadership opportunities, and to engage with others who are different from them, either economically or culturally. We will provide we'll have a well-rounded student who can actually engage in the real world, collaborate with others, be critical thinkers, be resilient when things are tough, and be able to reach out with others. So that is what the Edina Public School, by providing these strong programs, can create for the future for our students.
Thank you, candidates. We appreciate all of your work and your dedication to our school district. At this point, we'll move on if there are questions from the audience. Thank you. We have put together an order of rotation for the questions. If we have enough questions and we're doing fairly well on time, we'll just go back to the rotation that we started with at the beginning of the forum. So the question for this from the audience: what do you propose the district do to bring back resident students not currently attending Edina Public Schools? Thank you. 1 minute to respond to these questions, and you will all respond to the question. We will begin with David Goldstein.
I've got to be honest first, I'm not quite sure that I understand the question. So I'll try to figure out what I think it means. If we're talking about bringing people back who've graduated from the school to be participants in the school, I think you do that by providing lifelong learning and by being the type of school that we've talked about. And I'm not quite sure what else to say. Hopefully I'll be enlightened by the other answers. I may just be missing it, but thank you.
Lionel Dorville. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, would
No.
it be possible to get clarification
Is
of the
there
question?
anyone?
Clarification and the description was if those students were choosing other educational options, but they lived within the school district.
That's different.
Like private schools,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
or going to
Not
another.
alumni, but rather those that make another choice. That's a different question. Okay.
And David, would you choose to edit your remarks based on the clarification?
Sure. First of all, Leno, you have my vote now for having had the sense to ask, which is what you want in a board member, someone who asks before talking. As my wife who's back there will tell you, one of my flaws. But, I think what you do is you have the best program that you can offer. The more we can meet the needs of all kinds of students and all kinds of families, the more attractive this district will be, and the less attractive some of the other private schools or other schools that offer more specialized offerings will be. And I think we can do a better job, and we can bring some of those kids back to the district. But I would also say there's always going to be families and kids that have their own priorities that can't easily be met in the public school system, and it's certainly legitimate for some people to choose to pursue those. And the fact that they do does create opportunities for folks to open enroll into our district and provide us with the benefits of having people from other communities and give them the benefit of being a part of the Edina community. Thanks.
Lionel Dorville.
Honestly, I think Susan, I never said Susan's last name, so I might butcher it, but our new communication director, Susan Broad, hopefully I said it right, will be tasked to do that. I mean, I think we need to do a better job as a district to sell ourselves because we are number one in the state. We do things quite well that sometimes I think the private schools or whatever non-traditional learning opportunities do not provide. So I think we need to do a better job in word of mouth because I have been successful and I'm here due to word of mouth, parents asking me, hey, you should run, or people supporting me. So I think if we're able to focus on what we do well and stick to that and let people know that and do sell that, we'll do quite well in attracting the best and the brightest back to our district. Thank you.
Gail Castro.
Thank you. I think once somebody leaves, it's hard to bring them back, just for continuity's sake for the child. So I think what we need to do is understand why they left. I mean, did they leave for personal reasons, like David has mentioned? Because unfortunately, we can't be everything to everybody. But if they left for something that maybe is a reoccurring theme, then it's something we maybe need to look at as a district. And if it is, then perhaps we can implement change or policy to ensure that other people don't leave for the same reasons. Because certainly you do want to keep your best and brightest here. But, again, like David mentioned, if somebody leaves to pursue something for personal reasons, it does create opportunity for others. So I think Edina is very fortunate in that we have such a tremendous community, and we just need to keep doing what we're doing so people want to be here.
Danielle Busby.
I think we should just continue to excel in what we do well, as Lionel had said, but also we need to work with the district in helping identify marketing strategies and communication channels to better sell ourselves to the public. But also, we also need to understand that when people decide to leave, they're deciding to leave for a particular reason, and it may be their approach to education isn't being fulfilled. And in light of what Gail had said, maybe we could do some type of exit interview or exit survey. Just put it out there and see if the families will fill it out and tell us why they are leaving, so that we can address any of those issues.
Vivian Talgater.
So I have to agree with Danielle on this one. We need to survey those people. We don't necessarily understand their rationale for leaving, and unless we do, we can't fix the problem. So I personally know 3 students who have left the district. One left the district because they were not getting they'd already maxed out on the challenges that the district could provide. Another left because the district because they were concerned about possible chemical use at the high school. And then the third left, not necessarily willingly, but was told that they had the needs would be better met for that student at a smaller school. So that particular family did want to come back, and unfortunately was not welcomed back.
We need to move on, thank you. Lisa O'Brien.
So how do we engage families that have left? You talk to them. You can survey them. You can just talk to them one-on-one. If you ask them, they'll tell you why they left, because I've been talking to them for the last month or two. Some leave because for parochial reasons. They want their child to have a religious education. We don't provide that here, and we're not going to. So that's a different group. But those families often come back in middle school. And so how do we engage them in middle school? We make sure that we communicate what the Edina Public School can do for their child and how we can support them in other academic ways. One of the main reasons I've heard from people that leave is class size. The class sizes are smaller at other schools, and they're concerned with our budgetary constraints, continues to raise our class sizes. So how do we talk about that? And how do we make decisions regarding that and support, if we have to do larger class sizes, how do we support individual achievement? So,
Regina Neville.
Well, first of all, the choice is important. Parents do have a choice, and they need to reserve that right to find the best educational environment for their students. But in terms of those who aren't finding their needs met at Edina Public Schools, pursuing our All for All mission is going to help us do that better. So as we learn where those gaps are, and there are gaps, how can we fill those gaps? How do we expand our personalized learning so that we can better meet the needs of students who do desire to come here?
Randy Meyer.
Thank you. It's interesting, the resident students who do not attend Edina Public Schools is roughly equal to the number of open enroll students over at least over the recent past. What's important for Edina schools is to continue to strive for excellence, continue to improve, and also learn what we can from any students that have left so we better understand or we might have opportunities for improvement. Thank you.
All right, the second question from the audience. What measures would you take to ensure the recruitment and retention of staff who better reflect an increasingly diverse student population? This question will be answered first by Lisa O'Brien, 1 minute. Your time starts
Yep.
now.
So our student population is becoming more diverse. About 2001, I think we were at something around 8% students that identified as non-white. And now we're at about 19. We all have different backgrounds, we have different cultural backgrounds, and we want to make every student feel welcome and understood in the school so that they feel inspired to grow. One of the ways to do that is to make sure we have teachers that also represent that diversity. We need to reach out to those teaching colleges. We need to encourage those teachers to show them that we can support them in this school, that we can provide collaborative learning opportunities to learn from teachers who are master teachers, and encourage them that we are a welcoming community. That's how we get to our diverse teachers.
Vivian Talgater.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. What measures would you take to ensure the recruitment and retention of staff who better reflect an increasingly diverse student population?
I believe that the school district has actually already started to tackle this particular issue in that there have been some changes made to the hiring practices as far as the types of questions that would be asked. So that's from the hiring standpoint. And then from the retaining standpoint, the staff are all being trained now. 70% of the staff will go through equity training this particular year, and the rest will finish up next year. So I believe that steps are already being taken to address this.
Danielle Busby.
This was kind of a hot issue in my box when I decided to run. My background is HR, and I've recruited for many different organizations helping with growing the people of color employee staff ranks. I would definitely just go to colleges and identify those cultural organizations that are on campus and trying to just opening ourselves up and speaking about the EPS schools and trying to engage them and trying to market our district. And then I would also maybe check out other districts that are more culturally diverse with their staff and see if we can, pardon the pun, poach them to bring them over here so that we can actually have a more diverse ranks. It's a very, very important aspect that we need to approach now.
Moving on now to Gail Gastro.
Thank you. You know what, I think the crux of this is always going to come down to the same thing. Why do you take a job? Pay, opportunity, advancement, environment, the fact that your voice is heard. I think those are all key criteria in ensuring that somebody likes their job and wants to be part of that particular work environment. So if we can continue to answer those questions and do the very, very best job that we can, because sometimes we can't pay our teachers the most, but if we can let them know that they're vitally important, that we're going to listen to them, that perhaps the environment is a welcoming environment and that they have the ability to contribute, people will want to work for you. So beyond that, it's simply reaching out to the various populations that provide teachers, whatever teaching institutions they are, and that might even be community-based teachers, and letting them know that we're looking and that we are going to provide this environment where they are a vitally important piece of our success. I think that's how you attract and keep top people.
Lionel Dorville.
I'm going to do it to you again. Can you repeat the question, please?
What measures would you take to ensure the recruitment and retention of staff who better reflect an increasingly diverse student population?
I'm going to leery as a parent of looking at possibly increasing staff just for a diversity component, so to fill a particular quota. I think when we're looking at this, we need to look at competency and who's able to understand and meet the needs of our youth that we're serving. I think Blake is an interesting model in that they have the ability to bring in teachers and utilize an alternative licensure structure. And I think Edina can benefit to some ways in bringing in teachers in learning situation, because teachers need hours. So is that working with schools surrounding our area, bringing teachers in and having them work with an experienced teacher, learning the ropes and helping them getting some of their hours and meeting the need, while also offering our students extra teacher in the classroom. So I think if we're able to look at some of those alternative licensure structures or practices, that's how we may be able to retain and bring them in. Thank you.
David Goldstein?
Thank you. I don't think you can teach effectively a diverse student body without a diverse staff. So I think it is important that we create and maintain that diversity. I also completely agree with Lionel that you don't and can't sacrifice quality just in order to fill a quota. That's not the goal. We want the best teachers. So how do you do this? You do it the same way that other companies and other entities do it to promote diversity in their workplaces. You do it through effective outreach and recruiting. You look at the right schools. You are creative in trying to find candidates, and then you hire the best candidates. And you hopefully entice people to accept your job offers and to stay here by offering competitive pay, by supporting and respecting teachers and giving them an environment where they can grow and where they get job satisfaction.
Randy Meyer?
Thank you. Proactive recruitment is something that goes way back when we recruited Dr. Dressen. It wasn't who's going to apply for the job, but how do we seek out the best individuals available for the job? And that's been reflected in his work in recruiting his leadership. And now we've implemented some of those activities as well at the site level to make sure we're recruiting teachers with the most talents, but also that a teacher population that reflects our student population. So it is very, very important. There's no simple answers, but there have been some things that have put in place, but we can certainly do better. Thank you.
Regina Neville?
It's important that the board continue to have a deep commitment to equity. This needs to be reflected in policy and in all of the foundation that we lay down in order to carry out the district's mission. This includes the importance of having our staff reflect the diversity of our student body. So combining that commitment of excellence and equity can attract good teachers. And I know that we have the leadership team in place to go out and actually implement what that looks like. When our staff joins, the mentorship is key. We need to guide our staff to welcome them, support them, and continue their professional learning as they work with our system.
All right, third question from the audience. Please give an example of a time you represented views different than those of the person or organization in power. We'll start with Gail Castro.
I think the most prevalent example, and it unfortunately happened a fair bit in my professional life, when I was in sales at Oracle, sometimes you had to forego the sale for the long-term gain. I was selling at Oracle during the dot-com boom, so it was really, really easy to walk into any company who thought they were going to put up a website and say, hey, you need this much database, this much tools, and you're going to spend $500,000 today, knowing full well that that's not really what was best for them. So by stepping back and saying to my management, you know what, that's not what's best for them. If I sell them what they truly need today, I'm gaining a customer for life. And that was proven time and time again in my professional career. By doing the right thing today, I gained a long-term customer, which of course was good for me. So it was in sales. So, yeah.
Danielle Busby.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes,
please?
I can. Please give an example of a time you represented views different than those of the person or organization in power.
I'm going to go back to as a PTA member, I had a differing perspective in our approach to setting up our a party. And we were trying to figure out what the theme was going to be and what the food was going to be and so on and so forth. And my fellow PTA members were looking at it as, well, it was successful last year and previous years, let's just do it the same way. And I just spoke up, and I spoke up in a neutral, considerate, respectful way, and just said, hey, why don't we try to vary it a little bit and put a little bit of a twist to it and try to include the changing faces of our school. And that would be with offering different choices diet-wise and music and so on and so forth.
Vivian Talgater?
Okay, so I happen to work in the magnetic disk drive industry, and one of the recent projects that I've been working on involved bringing in or determining the strategy that we wanted to go forward with a particular project. And my particular viewpoint on that differed from that of my management or my boss, but the way that we handled it and we worked it out is that we got all the stakeholders into a room and we discussed the issues. And at the end of it, we came to a consensus on how this thing was going to look. The end result did not necessarily reflect, what I had wanted originally, but yet I am on board with supporting that because that was the collective group decision. That is kind of how I view the board, too. So the board acts as a unit.
Lisa O'Brien?
I think back to my role, my current role and my past role as an advocate. So working at the Department of Pediatric Psychology at the U, I often worked with families who did not understand the system, special education system well, and I would work with children with significant needs, and I'd be often asked to go to IEP meetings and work with the district to help get these children's needs met. And what I found when I did that is we might have walked into the room with different viewpoints, but that through talking with them, we determined we actually had the common goal. We just had different ways of getting to that goal. And so I would, through education of this child's particular needs and the constraints of the district, we worked in collaboration to actually get the job done.
Regina Neville?
So the situation that I've been reflecting on is when I was managing an organization in California. So I did have some power in that I was a managing director for the group. We had an employee on our staff working as a custodian who had suffered a significant brain injury before his hire, which happened before my time. The work was not meeting the standards of the organization. There was a lot of pressure from the board and the staff to fire this individual. What I recognized is that although they were accurate in that the quality of the work wasn't meeting the needs of the group, the process was not fair to this individual. What we needed to implement was a different kind of system that met his needs where they were, looked at why he had been hired and what were the expectations, and how are we communicating those to him. The solution involved a lot of work with our individual, with his family, and with the organization that understood his needs and helped us change as an organization to better meet his needs.
Randy Meyer?
This is maybe a little too close to home, but I think it's important to talk about. Having served as chair for the past 6 years, when I became chair, one thing that became very clear to me was that all of the discussions we have as a board need to occur in a meeting. And so we very strictly enforced our committee structure, our board workshops, and our meeting structure so that if we're debating an issue, even if we know that somebody's opposed to it, that they're part of the discussion, they're involved, and that their voice is always heard. Because ultimately, the end result isn't necessarily what Randy wants as the chair at the time. or what individual board member wants, but as a unit, what is the best outcome that we can provide for our community based upon group discussing it openly and clearly and coming to a consensus based on the expertise of our education professionals. Thank you.
David Goldstein.
I grew up in the 60s. My dad likes to argue for sport. I went to a Quaker college, and I'm a lawyer. So my life is about telling people in power what they don't want to hear, sometimes because they need to hear it, sometimes because it's fun. But, less facetiously, a lot of my time is spent as a lawyer telling people you can't do things the way you want to, or, there's problems in what you want to do, and helping them to understand what they can do, what the best way to do it is. It happens all the time. What I would say is important is that you know how to communicate disagreement or limitations to people in power in a way that's respectful, that you can use humor, that you can be both forceful and work toward a consensus and get things done. And that I guess, is the best answer I can give.
Lionel Dorville.
In all seriousness, I would use my own example of going to Hamlin University and graduating with a 3.5 in my major. That's going against the trend of what a black male should be able to do. I work for the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative within Hennepin County, and I find alternative to detaining youth, which is contrary to the culture. I work and advocate for solutions, not suspensions. And I really think we do need to find creative solutions. Instead of putting kids out of school, how do we utilize them within school and meet their needs? Children Defense Fund. I'm a youth advocate leaders, and you have to be careful what you cut. So when we're talking about this, I think we need to be practical and remember who we're talking about, serving our youth and being a youth advocate. So those are a lot of different hats. You could Google it and you'll find it online. But those are some of the things I think are contrary that I have advocated for. Thank you.
Question number 4 for you candidates. What is the best way to ensure community engagement and involvement with the work of the school board? We'll begin this rotation with Randy Meyer.
One more time, please, the
Yes.
question?
What is the best way to ensure community engagement and involvement with the work of the school board?
It's a challenge at times. It's important for the board to articulate what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it, and to have a feedback loop from the community as well. Sometimes, and particularly with the changes we're going through now, they're happening very quickly. And so it's really important that we communicate early and often so they understand when we get to a major point that it's understood what's going on. But it's a major challenge. As far as community engagement, on a personal level, my cell phone's been out on the website the past 12 years. It's important to be open, be receptive, and also to communicate directly with your constituents with questions. But community engagement, frankly, is a challenge. Many of our, 65% of our community members do not have a child in our schools, and so it's an ongoing challenge. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
The question that's being posed is one that the school board has spent a fair amount of time reflecting on, at least in the past year. As Randy said, this is a challenge. Part of it is balancing the open meeting process and the statutes by which the board needs to govern with the ability to communicate with the public. That said, what I think has been helpful is looking at, well, one, just having Susan brought on board. The board intentionally asked that the district change how it handles communication. We know that this is a priority, and we need to manage it well in order to make sure that people are informed. The second part is our liaison positions. The board is active in participating with, boy, I'd counted them up. I think it's about 30 different groups in the community that we are actively involved with. So that's one help, but then as Randy mentioned, our cell phone numbers, our email addresses are out there. We always welcome that one-to-one communication with people in the community.
Lisa O'Brien.
One of the best ways is to be transparent in the ways that we communicate and the ways that, that the community members can get involved. Through, whether that's through being on a task force, being on an advisory council, just inviting them to meetings. And really to invite the community early in the decision-making process. So they feel that they're part of the decision-making process, that their feedback is valued. The other thing, the city of Edina has done this, where if you sign up on the website and you can say, I would like information regarding whichever, lane closures, road closures, little specific things. I think Susan is doing a great job, but if people could have a highlight and say, I want summaries of school board meetings, or then you could highlight that and you would get a small blurb that would come in your email and that would keep you involved. That'd be another choice of a way to get involved and to be to be part of the community. And again, having school board members always available to be contacted. That helps.
Vivian Talgater.
Okay. I'm absolutely going to agree with Lisa on people needing to know when things are going to happen. I think that one way that could be done is through alerts. So if I know the school calendar was a particularly divisive issue this year. Not everybody knew about it right at the get-go. So I think that alerts need to go out when potentially divisive issues are going to be discussed. The second thing that I think would be extremely helpful is town hall meetings between the board and the rest of the community. The reason why I say this is because right now you have 3 minutes at a board meeting to bring up your issue, and there's no time for discussion at that meeting. So to get feedback from the whole board, you really need some other venue for doing that.
Danielle Budsby.
I totally concur with Vivian. I was actually going to mention the town hall meetings as well. I would keep with the current avenues of communication that the school board is demonstrating currently, but I would add the town hall meetings, or possibly having little survey cards like that you have at retail stores, just to say, hey, what's your feedback on our current standing? What would you like to talk about? What do you not understand? Just having maybe having a little index box downstairs for people to just plop down their concerns or issues or questions, and then having one of the board members contact them personally and engage them in the process.
Gail Castro.
I think the best way to continue to engage community is to the 5 Ws, who, what, why, where, and welcome. Who we are, what we do, why we do it, why we want the community involved, certainly, where we do it, and that can be simply the meetings or how to contact the board via email or cell phone, and to let the community know that they're welcome. Because again, I think sometimes people get intimidated and overwhelmed. And certainly for the school board to continue with what they're doing, the community outreach. We can't always ask people to come to us, we go to them and let people know that we're there and that we're receptive to hearing what they want to do. And that could be addressed a number of certain ways. The town hall has been mentioned, a more interactive blog versus a website, so people can, open up a dialogue via blog. And certainly with the way the rules are, discussions have to be held a certain way, but the community could certainly let us know what they're thinking without necessarily showing up here. So again, answering those 5 Ws.
Lionel Dorville.
I think in my role as a community liaison for the Department of Correction in Hennepin County, bring a unique view if elected as a board member, because that is my role, is to engage community. And I think we have been successful in doing that well. But I have to applaud the current board, because I was fortunate as a parent to come to the board last year and discuss some issues about accountability, expectation, and everyone from the top, Randy Meyer to Regina to Sarah to everyone, Kathy, have been amazing reaching out to me and offering their assistance post that meeting. So I think it's incumbent upon us to utilize some existing structures that we have in place, but do work on some of these community forums that the schools, which have the autonomy to put on, does do. do. So I just think we need to get back in touch, and that's Susan's job to get the word out there that we are doing it. Thank you.
David Goldstein?
I would agree with what everyone else has said on this issue, and then I would add the importance of getting out, meeting people one-on-one, asking them what's on their mind, listening carefully to what they have to say. Most people do have views and opinions, but they're reluctant to volunteer them, and it requires actually reaching out to them and listening when they do begin talking. We're talking about a lot of issues with regard to the achievement gap and diversity, where there are lots of people in our community who do not have politically correct views, and they know their views are not politically correct, but they're still their views. And they have no way to talk about them, and we need to give them a way to talk about them and work through them and get a more genuine support of what the district is doing, as opposed to just talking in very abstract terms, but leaving people sort of thinking, I'm not sure that I like this or I understand it.
Well, we're fortunate enough to have more questions from the audience, and I think we have time for one more question. So we'll go back to the original rotation. And the question is, Superintendent Rick Dressen's current contract expires in 3 years. If he retires at that time, what priorities would you have for hiring a new superintendent? And we'll start with Danielle Busby.
First and foremost, the priority would be finding an individual who is passionate about our children's education. Finding an individual who is progressive and strategic in their approach to finding solutions and missions for and strategies toward our improving and maintaining Edina Public Schools' excellence. And thirdly, I think that the individual would need to be a former educator and also a former, if we could, a corporate business person, that they at least have those experience in both of those sides of the house to come to approach things with a balanced viewpoint in regards to executing our strategic plans.
Gail Castro.
Thank you. This one's easy for me. I can bring it down to one word: a leader. I want to work for somebody who can motivate and encourage and empower the people beneath them. I want to work for somebody who's a visionary and can see beyond today, but maybe guess what tomorrow might look like. I want to work for somebody who brings that passion to work and maybe can encourage me to join that passion, I guess. So for me, it's really easy. A leader and a education background, I think, is nice, but to me, it's more of a leader. I just want somebody who's going to gather the troops and march down the field. So,
Lionel Dorville.
I think that internal fortitude. I pick up the phone, because I'm a phone person, and I say, hey, Rick, I need to talk to you. Hey, Lionel, come on in. And I think that is the type of leadership, that open door policy. I never looked at Rick, and I should say Rick Dressen, as a superintendent. It never made me feel that way, and he really does believe in that flat leadership. So if we really look into that, I think someone who has that vision and that internal fortitude to serve our young people, because at the end of the day, that is all Rick has been committed to, and one of the reasons I could say for myself why I'm here, because it was Rick's encouragement and leadership that helped me along the way to say, hey, you have a voice and you need to use it. So that is an effective leader. He's conscious of the people that is affected by his decisions. So that's what I would be looking for in a new superintendent. Thank you.
David Goldstein.
I would first say that I think Rick has been a great superintendent for the district, and I would applaud the current board for making it possible for him to remain in that role for hopefully at least another 3 years. When it comes time to find a new leader, I don't think you can't predict exactly who will be available or what skills she or he will bring, but we do need to look for someone who can provide that leadership, who will be respected by the teachers, who knows how to deal with the Edina community, which is both a tremendous resource to the school and can be a difficult beast to tame at times, I would guess, if you're superintendent. So we need to look for that skill set. I don't know who that person will be, but when you're electing the board, certainly you're electing the people who are probably going to be involved in that decision, and that's one of the reasons why this is such an important election.
Randy Meyer.
Thank you. We do have some big shoes to fill. I think the first point that's very important is preparation. We've structured the current contract with proper notice so we can conduct a proper search. Need to hire an outside search firm so you can effectively tap the talent that a board member or another member of the administration couldn't necessarily pick up and put a phone call into because of the kind of recruiting you're trying to do. And the third and most important is conducting a community session to really develop and properly vet what are the characteristics in a superintendent that the community is looking for, the parents of the district are looking for, the taxpayers of the district are looking for at that time, because it may be different than what we think we need right now for a leader. So that's very important. Thank you.
Regina Neville.
In hiring a superintendent, we're hiring our key super teacher. I have learned a lot from Rick Dressen, and I know that any superintendent we bring on in the future will, as Randy said, have large shoes to fill. They are going to be educating our community, all of us as a board, as parents, and all of our teachers. They are guiding us to meet the vision that will help our mission best serve our students in the future. That's a big role. Teaming has been a key part of this. I'm sure that it's going to be a key part of the person we find for the future. So someone who is an educator, committed to the mission, and with a vision for how that will be effective in the future.
Lisa O'Brien.
This is a big decision for voters, because this is probably the most important decision I think the board will make over the next 4 years. And this decision needs to be made in partnership with the community. When I look for a superintendent, I look for someone who will be a role model for the community, for the teachers, for our kids, someone who is inspirational and who is, him or herself, a lifelong learner. That's what we want our kids to be. I want someone who has shown a history of making progress with populations that are similar to ours, so that they're bringing a skill set with them that has worked in other places. And I also want someone who is open to innovation and is flexible in looking at how we educate our students, but doing so keeping within a reasonable budget. Thank you.
Vivian Talgater.
I would echo what Randy had said, and I feel that as the only person up here who has gone through that, and he did it very admirably, that those are, some tough shoes to fill. So I would be looking for somebody who was passionate about education, somebody who is willing to listen to all sides, and then somebody who has a proven history of leadership as well as being a team player and a consensus builder. It will be very important that that person can work amongst all of the population in Edina.
Well, we've come to the end of our candidate forum. We appreciate the 2.5 hours you all have spent with us, sharing your insights, and we again thank you for your willingness to serve the school district. I want to thank the audience as well for coming this morning, as well as PLC for organizing and hosting this event. A reminder that a recording of this forum will be available at www.edinaschools.org. Thank you again, and remember to all vote on Tuesday, November 5th.